The only real competitors to the Retroid Pocket Flip 2 are very expensive devices. You've got the Iron Neo Flip, you've got the GPD Win Mini, which is also very, very expensive. And so this really stands on its own as a very unique device. And as I was testing it today, I thought to myself, this is what Nintendo should be making for us. Something unique and interesting. I think Nintendo aren't in a place to take risks anymore. And so we have exciting companies like Retroid taking risks for us. Okay, things that stand out to me with this device are the front-facing speakers. I really like the front-facing speakers. You know, we had terribly badly positioned speakers on the Flip 1. Now we have lovely front-facing speakers, and as I've been testing it, I'm not getting any distortion, so it's a decent speaker. And this clamshell was nice, but we've got quite a bit of like sort of play. You don't like it. There's no like definite ending. It just ends. Like they had these little notches here to stop the hinge from just flapping to the back, and then it closed, but it wasn't it wasn't super satisfying. It was, I mean, I still love the Flip. But here we have a very distinct and enjoyable there. And then it flips open with like a bit of force, which is nice. And then it snaps back. It really has a lovely hinge. We'll talk about whether it's durable or not, but this is a great hinge. And then you've got play. So it kind of knocks back like this, so now it's like a 2DS, and that is nice. So you've got that play, but there is quite a bit of force here. So my worry is that even though you've got that play, that force might wear, I think it's going to be okay, but I can see a little bit of pulling happening here. So my concern with this is the hinge, but we'll talk about that just now. And then we have what I'm guessing is the same 5.5-inch AMOLED screen that we have in the Retroid Pocket 5. And we all love the screen on the Retroid Pocket 5. This is exactly the same. As I've been playing games, like even I put a filter on Game Boy Advance, and that OLED just looks great with a filter, because the filter is creating little black pieces in between the screen to create these little pixels. And so it just looks fantastic. Like really, I can't sing the praises of the screen enough. Retroid found a good screen and they've just kind of milked it, and I'm glad they did. And then we'll talk about the ergonomics, but it has great controls. Retroid have historically done excellent controls. I think for me, the action buttons took on a whole nother level with the Flip, where they went with these double injection molded action buttons. They did the membrane D-pad on this Flip. I'm glad they went with this D-pad, which is the dome switch D-pad on here. So you've got a dome switch D-pad, you've got their standard membrane, slightly clackety, but less clackety than the other devices. I was testing it on the loo just now. It wasn't very clackety, so that's good. Lovely, not full range, but you've got a good range of motion on these. It's not the sliders. I do miss the sliders. Like this had a little bit of charm with these sliders, like just going back to these now, it was great having these sliders, but these are quantifiably better to have these sunken in joysticks. And then on the joysticks, in my live stream, I noted this. These are interchangeable. I'm not going to do it now, but they are interchangeable with the Retroid Pocket 5 concave joysticks. So if you don't like this convex style, you can go with the concave. But what I like about these is they're very grippy on the edges. Some people don't like that. So if you don't like that, you order those little Retroid Pocket 5 caps and you can put them on here. But these are great. Like they really are nice. I'm loving them. The more I use them, the more I like them. And the recess with the LED kind of looks cool, don't you think? All right. And then the other thing that really stands out with this device is their sort of compromise Snapdragon chipset. It's this SD865, which is not a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which you get in the AYN devices. That thing just creams through pretty much everything you throw at it. This, you've got to be a bit more conservative. You've also only got 8 gigs of RAM on here. So this is not a Switch emulation beast, but I will put a couple of Switch games that I tested on here. It can do a lot for your money, and I really think that's another area where Retroid really knocked it out the park, was to go with a compromise of the chipset to save a bit of money on these devices, but you're still getting a lot of gameplay. The only thing is, on the high end, you're gonna have to play with custom drivers, but therein lies the secret of the Snapdragon chipset, is the fact that you are going to be able to use custom drivers with the turnip drivers. So I'll put the link to my setup guide, or just Google Aiden Wall's Android setup guide, and I've done a setup guide for the Retroid Pocket 5, the AYN portal. I'm busy making some tweaks to the setup guide there, and I've been making tweaks as I've been setting this up today as well. On the sort of issues, I'll talk about the biggest issue I feel with this device, but the thing that I don't like on the control side is this had a lovely wraparound here. Which I really liked. It wrapped around, and the trigger was really nice on here. Not a massive amount of range of motion, and this is the same. There's not a huge amount of range of motion on this, but the thing about it is it's a much more boxy design. So the corner is pretty sharp on there. So yeah, it's not, I actually prefer the trigger on here. So, you know, it is a nice trigger. It's got nice plastic, and you've got the clicky shoulder buttons. The other thing I did notice while I was doing my live stream is that these function buttons look quite cheap on this gray. I must say, like, I would not recommend the gray. I would recommend the other colors. It's just something about it that I feel cheapens the whole thing a little bit. The other little issue that I picked up on, so with the Retroid Pocket Flip, there was no back button. And I mentioned this in my review of this device, is that there's no back button, but the saving grace was that they introduced these M1 and M2 buttons that you could map to whatever you want. Now, when you map a button, so I have gotten into the habit of mapping back buttons. So the Retroid Pocket 5 has got a back button there. I will map that button to RetroArch. So RetroArch have now allowed for a single button to be mapped to the menu. And so I press that single button and it opens the menu instead of doing a hotkey. Now, we have to go back to the olden days of pressing select and X or whatever you're going to map to a hotkey, because even though the home button is mappable, and the home button does act as a menu button in like the Citra emulator or the 3DS emulator and those emulators, Dolphin, it'll do that. But in RetroArch, if I try to map the home button as the menu button, the press and hold of the home button is baked into the software, into the Android software. If I press and hold this, it goes out. It goes home. So pressing and holding this to map it in RetroArch inadvertently closes RetroArch and doesn't do it in time to map it. So you've only got that one button to map, which I think is just, it's a little bit of a frustration. I don't know why they dropped the M1 and M2 buttons that they had on the Flip, because everybody liked it. I recall liking it. I used it all the time. Okay, another thing, I don't know, man. I went on a little bit about this in my live stream, and that is, what is the deal with this thing on the lid? Like, I'm not sure what they were doing here. Like, I might need to cut this out, but on the gray, and pay attention to the other reviews that will inevitably come out today from the other reviewers, but on this gray, I can confirm that this design on the lid just cheapens the whole look and feel of the thing. Ryan Retro was on my live stream and he said it's just begging for a PlayStation sticker. And I do think if I designed a little round PlayStation sticker or a Nintendo sticker and stuck it on there, it would help a lot. Because as it currently stands with this like ingrained thing here, I don't know. Let me know in the comments, but I just dislike it. I don't know why. You know, we have now been around this thing before, and there were issues with hinges. Now, I maybe went a little bit overboard about this on my live stream, but there weren't a lot of people with cracked hinges, but there were a fair amount of people with cracked hinges, and it was on the opaque colors. So with the Flip, I think there was the watermelon, there was another clear color. Now we only have the ice blue, then we have the purple, we have the black and the gray. I can tell you that from what I can see, this plastic feels brittle, and Like physics just tells me that if you do this too many times and you pull against what it's supposed to do, so if you sort of press like this too many times with your device, this is going to crack, because if you go onto their website, there is a metal bar in here, and metal obviously is going to resist the plastic far more than plastic would. And so if you do this too often, this is going to break. I don't know, maybe Retroid can show us some stress testing of this thing, but I'm not convinced. And so look out for other reviews before you buy it. I do think I only have the gray, and from what I can feel, what I can see, that may be an issue in the future. Okay, now ergonomics, I mentioned that we don't have as much of a wraparound trigger experience. Now, I haven't done a lot of triggering with this device, but it is what it is. Like, it's not as comfortable as the Flip on these triggers. That's just the reality of it. These bumpers are lovely, as they were on the Flip. Very nice bumpers, so nothing changed there from what I can see, and they are great. The thing I said in my live stream is I'm not sure about this. Chris from the social media guy said, just wait till you feel the ergonomics of having sticks up at the top. As I said, I have been playing this now for the past couple of hours, and I'm getting used to it. So, the copium, people call it. You get used to something, especially when something is this nice. But the buttons should have been there. Like, that's just the reality of ergonomics. Like, over there, you're moving, so like, let's just go here again. This was a nicer hold, the Flip one. This just isn't as nice. Like, the buttons should have been at the top. That's my take on it. See what the other reviewers say. It is more chunky. So we've got a chunkier handheld, I think. Let's have a look here. No, it's a fair amount chunkier. And then if we go to this side, I'm just gonna feel it. It is a fair amount chunkier, which does make it nicer to hold. Like I said, it is a squarer design, a sort of more like Germanic design. Like, it reminds me of like BMW and Mercedes-Benz design culture. The Retro Pocket 5 is an ergonomic beast compared to this. Obviously, this thing, the way you put your fingers sucks, but you've got the D-pad and action buttons up at the top, which is what you're going to use mostly on a device like this. Just like start an argument with me in the comments, because I'm trying to decide why this was a better solution than having the joysticks at the bottom. And I usually don't harp on about things like this, but it just feels like a strange thing. Had the buttons been there, I would have been like, I understand, but I don't understand. Now, it brings me on to aesthetics, and I'm glad that I've taken a break between I did the live stream this morning, and now this evening I'm doing the first look video. And I'm glad I've given myself some time, because this design really has grown on me. Apart from this thing that I hate on the top, there's something really lovely about the way that this has been designed. Like I said, it's got sort of like a Germanic design culture to it, which there's nothing wrong with copying the Germans, you know what I mean? Like, it's got a really nice look and feel to it. This gray color is very nice. The hand feel of this plastic is lovely. It is a lovely matte plastic, very, very nice to touch, doesn't pick up on fingerprints. These buttons are nice with the little pull design over there. This is recessed beautifully, but it is lovely. I just, like, that does look pretty cool. I think I've made it in my mind that this sucks and I can't get over it. Let me know what you think. I think the other colors are going to look better with this. From the moment I saw it in the 3D renders, I thought to myself, oh dear, that's gonna suck. But other than that, it's a lovely looking device. That being said, hands down, I prefer the previous Flip. The Flip 1 to me is a beautiful little pod design. It is lovely. Like, this is a beautifully designed handheld. Looks like a lunchbox. It is nice. And I think it's the combination of the ergonomics and the screen. And once you start using it, it is lovely. But it's not a head turner. It just isn't. Right, I'm going to quickly just show you something with the fan. I'm going to put this onto high performance, which will put the fan on. And then I'm going to use my Ioneer here as an example. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's got a high-pitched whine to it. It's not nice. It's not nice to have a high-pitched whine like that on your handheld. And I just picked up on it because I was testing this recently. This doesn't have a high-pitched whine to it, and so it just is more pleasing and less annoying to have this in your space than having this whiny sound. Like that will wake my wife up in bed. But it is, I think it's a more powerful fan because you've got a more powerful chip in here than this little device. But, you know, I've got other devices that have that lower drone to them on the fan. And that's kind of what you're looking for. So yeah, I'll just put it onto performance mode so you can see. So that's with the fan just running normally. And that's how you're gonna mostly run it. So not a big issue. Don't go run away and say Aiden said the fan is a pain in the butt, don't buy it. It's not a reason not to buy it. And then as I did in my live video, it is actually, even though it is bigger, it is still pocketable. I mean, that is quite a bulge, but you got the lanyard and the fact that everything is in line, like there's nothing protruding too much. Like here you had quite a bulge for the triggers. Whereas here, it's a very gradual slope to the triggers. And so it actually makes it feel, this is still more pocketable. But yeah, it does make it like the way that it's designed makes it more pocketable than it would have been had it just had the big bulges on the end because it is a bigger device. Okay, just gonna mention a few features that are boring, but I'm gonna mention them. So this has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, so did the Flip 1. So battery life is probably going to be worse on this. We will see, time will tell. Connection, we have Wi-Fi 6 on here, so not Wi-Fi 7, but that's okay. It's still gonna do pretty decent streaming. Funny enough, the D1100 chipset, the cheaper version, which is $20, has Wi-Fi, has Bluetooth 5.2 or 5.3, so it has a more modern version of Bluetooth than this chipset. Not sure why, but that's not gonna be a big deal. But that does mean that you're gonna be able to do streaming. You're gonna be able to use your Bluetooth headphones, even though it does have a 3.5mm headphone jack. And as I did in my live stream, I pointed out this is actually a fantastic dockable device. So this docks in here, the screen shuts down so you can close it and just have it like this in your dock. And I just thought that was super cool. I'll definitely be doing more, like I'm gonna dock it and like spend a few hours playing on my big screen just to test it because we have had some issues with docking some of these devices, and so I will do some docking. So in terms of gameplay and performance, I kind of surprised myself. I don't know if the emulators have gotten better or if I've just gotten better at setting this all up, but testing Switch, 3DS I was struggling a little bit, and it might have to do with Azaha is still new and they're busy fixing things. I was surprised at the Switch games that I was getting working on here. I haven't tested Wii U yet, but that should be fun to test out. PS2 performance should be pretty good on here. So you're gonna get a lot of mileage on this thing. And while I have given it a hard time for quite a few things like the design and the fact that I'm worried about this hinge over time, what I am excited about is the fact that this is the only clamshell device priced at this price point that can play the games and do the things that this thing can do.